Well, good evening, good afternoon, and good morning, wherever you may be. I am Sean Lockard, and you're listening to the Mystic Paranormal Podcast. All right, Brandy, I would like to welcome you to the show. How you doing tonight?
I am doing just fine, thank you. This is one of the latest podcasts I've done in a while, so
Really?
I'm excited. I'm awake and alive, and we're going to do this.
Right. I'll tell you what, I've seen some coast-to-coast AM shows where there would be people that would be on the East Coast, and I think they're on the West Coast.
Yes.
And they would be like, the show wouldn't even start for them until like 2 o'clock in the morning.
I actually was on in 2004 with, I think it was Art Bell.
Oh, wow. The old school guy.
So the problem was that I'm a professor, and at that point I was a part-time professor at multiple universities, and that schedule, the adjunct schedule, is grueling. So I knew that I was supposed to be on. So the night I thought I was supposed to be on, it was like 2 in the morning, I think you're right, and I had gotten up, I had coffee, I had strawberries dipped in sugar, trying to get myself awake.
Oh, yeah,
and it turns out it was the next day.
Yeah,
So I had 2 nights of no sleep, which is exactly what you don't want to do when you're running from campus to campus.
Oh,
but
yeah.
we did it. It worked.
I had a guy one time that I had to interview that was from Scotland, and I had to like get up at 6 o'clock in the morning to do the show. It was that was a trip right there. That was funny. That was funny to do.
That's true. That is true podcast dedication right there.
Right.
So
Well,
that's awesome.
Well, this is all about you, Brandy. So why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Sure. Well, I get to be an interesting mix of things. So, about 22 years ago, I started in the arts. So I do hand-wrapped wire metal sculpture and photography. 20 years ago, I started in the paranormal. So I was an undergraduate at the University of South Florida, and I started to do research papers on the role of ghosts in various cultures, particularly ancient culture.
Okay.
And I did some academic forums. My first thesis was actually on the role of ghosts in ancient Roman religion. It was a blast. And from there, I started doing talks on local legends. And I was at an art gallery because I was showing there, and I did a talk on local folklore and urban legends as part of the art show because it was an October show. And this couple came up afterwards, and they said, "Oh, we like ghost hunting." They were retired from, I think, GTE or something like that back in the day, but they were house inspectors. And I was still a poor graduate student, and so essentially they had all of the equipment that I couldn't afford. I had the knowledge.
Mm-hmm.
Ended up forming the Spirits of St. Petersburg. So the Spirits actually celebrated its 20th anniversary from 1997 to 2017 last year.
Nice.
It's been kind of one of those rocky roads with paranormal. Unfortunately, it's a little difficult in my situation in some ways because as an academic, there's certain lines I can't cross. And of course, ironically, I do have degrees in religious studies. I teach religion as well as humanities and liberal studies.
Oh, interesting.
While I can talk about ghosts and culture, particularly in the classroom or in lecture presentations, I have to. There's a fine line that you just don't want to cross with students. And I've also found that there's a lot of kickback from the paranormal field because of the academic background.
Mm-hmm.
And then in 2004, when the shows hit, we became so inundated that, oh my gosh, the infighting. I mean, it was awful. I mean, there were 15,000 groups per square mile.
Yep.
We made it. We survived all that. But right now, the Spirits is still doing its thing. I would like to take it into a different direction, but I'm just not sure which way yet. Ghost hunting has been done. I do want to continue an educational aspect to it, like talking about our local history, why this is significant, what the symbolism is. And I do try to present through the Spirits a very reasonable and rational approach to paranormal investigation. I do find that people have a very emotional reaction to ghosts, and I certainly understand it. I have, had my fair share of encounters, although I'm not psychic. But it's one of those things where I don't want to make people afraid. I do tend to agree with the religious ideology that the liminal state, the line between the supernatural and the natural threshold, there are connections between the two, and we're really not supposed to fear it. Now, we're not supposed to poke at it. We're not supposed to...
Yep.
But, it's an interesting line. So I'm kind of retooling the spirits. And in fact, when you called, even though I'm a professor, I've got 6 degrees.
Right.
But I wanted to, my college allows me to take classes. So I'm taking an entrepreneurial class. So just when you called, I was like doing my essay for the week.
Right.
So I was talking about the paranormal and trying to do some of these ghost tours, and that is kind of an entrepreneurial aspect. So it's been interesting. And then, as I said, the academics. As a subset of the Spirits of St. Petersburg and the interest in the paranormal, I have been an animal lover my entire life.
Okay.
My parents are total opposites. My father was a cat person. My mother had pugs. Pugs are not dogs. Pugs are small people, so just understand that.
Right.
But they're cute, adorable little pudgy things. So, and it was about the only thing they could agree on was the pets.
Right.
I always thought that was really significant. So as a subset of my research, I started studying animal ghosts. In 2004, I did set up a paranormal pugs page, and it was kind of done tongue-in-cheek. Because pugs are an artificial breed. They're 2,000 years old. They go back to about 500 BCE, but they were bred. Nobody knows what they're supposed to do other than they're supposed to be companions. They are foot warmers, and they are flea attractors, because humans used to have fleas, so pugs were supposed to be juicier, so the fleas would leave us and go to them. I'm actually not making this up. I've done the research.
Right.
So when I did the Paranormal Pugs page, I postulated this essay, and it was all this, and I theorized that because pugs were so far removed. I mean, when was the last time you heard of a feral or wild pug? I mean, there really aren't any.
Right.
They were so far removed from nature that they would not sense a ghost. They would be, the term was PDK, psychic as a doorknob, and a nod to my mentors, the Ghost Discuss group, back in the day. And much to my surprise, I started getting people who responded to the page.
Okay.
And they started sending in pug ghost stories. And I started collecting them. That is what I do, is I do collect a lot of the stories, and I try to put them as is, as they come in. I'm not editing them. I'm not trying to skew anything one way or the other. I just post them as they come in, and I let people read them, and my goal is to let people make up their own mind. As an academic, I'm not supposed to, force you one way or the other, but I can say, look, I have done all of this research, I've had all of these encounters, I've had all of these people talk to me. Here's what I've got, but I want you to decide.
Right.
So that actually ended up kind of starting me into the paranormal pets. And it tied in really nicely because if you studied our culture, you know that animals have become more and more significant over the past 20 years.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
I remember being a kid, and I could go to a vet for $8. You could take as many pets as you could get in that door, and it was an $8 office visit. Now, for a pug to go in one, it's like $45.
Yep.
That's not even for meds, So it's told me a lot. For example, even the lifespan of animals has become so significant.
Yes.
The older records actually say that pugs had a lifespan of 9 to 10 years on average. Now they're living an average of 12, and the majority of mine make it to 14 or 15.
Yeah. My beagle actually lasted 16 years old.
Oh, well, I have a puggle, if that makes you any better. Half pug, half beagle. I'm not making that up either.
Yep.
I don't know if I want her to live to be 16 because she is a handful. but that, I had one that passed away this summer who was 15, and we've had them as old as...
Okay.
But it tells you something about the importance of animals. That there was a study that just came out that I posted on the Paranormal Pets page that people relate more to their pets, and they prefer the company of their animals to the company of other people.
Isn't that amazing? I mean, that's true,
look at
too.
the state of the nation right now.
Yeah.
We've got politics all over the place. We've got, you can't talk to anyone anymore almost without offending somebody. nobody.
Yeah, it's like they don't judge you. They sit there and listen. I mean,
And they're nice.
Yep.
I mean, they're good to be with.
Yeah, and they greet you every single time you come to the door.
That's it. I mean, I can walk out the door, get the mail, come back in. They're delighted. I can leave for 2 hours and
Yep.
the same level of delight, you know?
Yep.
And we can be comfortable with them.
You know, it's funny.
Go ahead.
You mentioned 2004, back when all the shows began, because I know what you're talking about, like Ghost Hunters and stuff like that started coming on TV. I think White Noise came out, so everybody started learning about EVP. And my wife and I actually started getting into stuff back in 2004. And we lived in St. Petersburg at the time, which is...
Oh, did you really?
Yeah, we lived in St. Pete, like right by Eckerd College, if you know where that's at.
Yeah, I taught there.
Yeah, okay. Well, that's where my wife went to school.
Okay.
Yeah, she went to school at Eckerd College. So, yeah, we just, went out, got the EVP recorders or the digital recorders, whatever you want to call them, and went to a cemetery. And I'll tell you what, the very first time I've ever done that, I did not expect anything whatsoever. And we went in there and we got voices that we could not explain. It was just me and her. And ever since then, I've been like completely into it, completely 100%. I know this is real. I don't care what anybody says. This is 100%.
It is interesting how it's worked out.
Mm-hmm.
I think for me the problem was that it became so removed from kind of the academic setting.
Yeah.
And it was never academic to begin with. I mean, don't get me wrong. Other than a parapsychology degree, physics or psychology, history, if you study it in a certain manner, I mean, there's not really a hardcore ghost degree. But I do remember, for example, realizing how far everything had gone. I went to get a manicure, and my nail tech said, "Oh, yeah, I went out and did EVPs the other night." And I thought, wow, okay. And she was this little thing. I mean, I asked, I'm 18, and I thought, okay. And how did you learn? I learned from TV. And I thought, okay. Because what I did was I had mentors. I had mentors from the 70s and 80s. And God love them. This was the joy of the internet. Because they actually, they formed a group. If you remember Yahoo groups. This is a an email group. And this was in the late 90s. This is right in conjunction with my research with the role of ghosts in ancient Greece, Rome, and Egypt. And I remember I thought I had my first ghost image, and I'll never forget it because the man passed away about 2 years ago. His name was Zambrovia, is what he called himself. His name was John, actually, but he was a photographer. And I was so excited because I was still using a film camera, and I had the 400 speed film, and I did everything you're supposed to do, the more advanced, and okay. And I thought I had this image, and I scanned it. And back in that time period, man, scanning was new technology.
Oh yeah,
we got it up on the internet, and I remember he looked at it and he said, "That's just a double exposure," and I was crushed.
Oh man,
he was right. He was actually right.
Oh, that's disappointing.
That I got to learn from. And I kind of watch the field now. I mean, I actually got something in my email the other day that was about stuffed animals that you can take if you're dealing with a ghost child. And this might not scare the ghost child. You can leave the stuffed animal out that's packed with all sorts of ghost equipment. And I've seen things that have come out that people buy, and I'm thinking, but it's a pseudoscience, number one. It is, and you have to acknowledge it's a pseudoscience. There is no canon. There's no, the closest you're getting is ghost hunters, and what the canon there is the methodology.
Right.
My team had. And technically, you could even say it's qualitative methodology if you really wanted to get technical. But to see, kind of the field turning that way, and unfortunately, there is some unity, but I see a lot of disunity. And I've seen a lot of people that I really, really respected in the field kind of move out of it. I think it's kind of hit that chaos point that I'm not quite sure what to do with it yet. I'm observing it. I have a real question as to whether or not I want to stay in the field because of what I've seen coming out of it lately, and it's not advanced any further.
Mm-hmm.
So it makes me very sad. It does, because when I got in, it was with that altruist, the hope of the young, that if you could prove the existence of ghosts, then you could prove that there's an afterlife. And
Yep.
It's sweet. It was sweet.
But why do you think that is, though? Like, with all the technology that's out now, and I mean, there's no mistake in some of the stuff that people are recording and photos that are taken that are proven to be authentic. Why do you think that, like, there hasn't been a more advancement as far as, like, ghost hunting goes? Why do you think they don't put more money into something like that? Is it just the subject itself, or do they just call it hocus pocus, or what do you think's going on there?
I think there's a mixture of things here. For one, you cannot get a parapsychology degree in the United States, at least the last time I checked, and that was a few years ago. Everything is really over in Scotland now. That's it. So there's no real access of material that you can get, particularly from an academic setting. The academic setting is going to probably be the one that you can at least get the grants for, and perhaps forward the research that comes through a scientific methodology. The world is all about STEM right now, and as a professor of religion and humanities and literature, that kills me because I'm into the arts, and so I'm like, no, it's STEAM, but no, it's STEM, whatever.
Yeah.
So essentially, I think if they actually if they had the degree programs here, and I think if, and I know this is going to sound odd, but there's some research that supports this too. The ending of the Cold War, not having an enemy, a nationalistic enemy that we can compete with in the same manner anymore. Because when you look at the 60s and 70s, part of it was, what are the Russians doing? What's going on over there? And ironically today, but we won't go there, there's politics. So there's that issue. I think because it's fallen into the hands of so many people that do not have a background with it. I remember having to explain over and over and over again about orbs, that orbs really are not going to be a good conclusive proof because of the flash field and the lens area, and that's still a contentious point. And I'm still surprised at that, because you can produce orbs so easily. And so I think it just has not merited anything beyond the pop culture yet. When it falls into pop culture, it mainstreams. When it mainstreams, it dissolves. Now, I think if you give it a few more years.
Well, one thing that gets me is the ghost hunting shows that are on today just seem to be a joke. And I don't mean that offensively to the shows out there. I know there's such thing as entertainment and people want to be entertained, but it just seems...
They're cheap to make.
Yeah, it's like they just go out there and scream, come at me, and it just seems like they're just making like a joke out of the whole thing. Like and then everybody's going out, and you could go to Amazon, you can buy your K2 meters, you could buy your ghost boxes and stuff like that. It just seems to be like it's just spanning out so far that it's actually just thinning out, and people are actually losing interest in it a little bit.
That's correct. I think we oversaturated the market.
Yes.
And in fact, we did. We completely oversaturated it. Although Destination America, I was like, I don't know what this channel what it showed before, because all it is ghost shows. But for example, I've been watching A Haunting, which they were rerunning, and a lot of the premise of The Haunting, I hear these same ideas from the 1960s, 70s, and 80s. Particularly there's certain religions that these shows tend to be very much against.
Yes.
To the point of a prejudicial extent. So if this is what is representing the field, then what's going to start happening, it's going to really represent just small slivers anymore, small groups of people that are going to really follow this. And I'm hoping that in a few years, and it might not be just a few, it might be 10, it might be the group of people who grew up when this was a saturated field, that as children became enamored with it. I'm hoping that those individuals utilize STEM. If you're gonna do this science, technology, engineering, math thing, do something you like with it, and maybe they will be the ones who actually take this back to an academic setting, and perhaps we start going back to laboratory research again. If we can get some credibility back into the field, I think that's going to make a big difference.
Yeah, now we got people on the Facebook Live saying that we're losing interest because nobody on those shows ever finds anything, and it's actually becoming hard to believe.
There's no definitive proof.
Yeah, and it's like, you know, before they cut to a commercial, there would be this big dramatic scene, and then they'll come back and it's just like a bat flying or something like that. It's always the same thing. There's never nothing significant there. Which one thing I find it's so weird is, like, during my paranormal investigation days, I've actually really got Class A EVPs, and I hear these EVPs on TV, and they're saying something, and I just cannot make it out. Like, I just can't make it out. Now, very few of them I can, but some of them, most of them, I can't make it out. And I don't understand how I'm getting these really clear EVPs using a lot cheaper technology, a lot cheaper equipment than what these guys and girls are using on TV. It's amazing.
Well, but you've got your point right there, though. So they have to appease an audience.
Right.
The producers are looking for something. So they have to come up with some sort of result, or else they're going to experience what every other ghost hunter in the world has experienced.
No show.
Hours and hours of possibly nothing,
yeah,
which is what happens on some cases.
Yes, and that is what ghost hunting is all about, is a lot of hours of nothing happening, and people don't understand that.
In front of your, X, Y, or Z. Usually for me, I bring my EVPs home, and usually I have to wait until late at night. The pugs have settled down. I get my big, those big special earphones that block out, and you can hear clearly.
Mm-hmm.
And then you kind of sit here in front of the computer, and you just listen. And it can be a little eerie when you do get something, because it's now 11 and 12 o'clock at night, and you've been listening to these things for a while. But until you have that experience, I had that issue with the spirits. As I said, as a 20-year team, I would get folks that would come on, and they're expecting, the ghost hunter experience. And I had to continuously explain, but it is not like that.
Right.
I would go to homeowners, and they're like, well, where's the cameras? Where's staff? And I'm like, well, we're an independent team.
Right.
TV is skewed.
Now, when you talk about that you're the co-founder of Spirits of St. Petersburg, why don't you tell us a little bit more about that group? Like, what do you guys do exactly?
Well, for quite some time, we would get calls out to locations. We did a lot of private investigations.
Okay.
We've done some public. But we've always tried, as I said, to kind of maintain a really calm approach, a very reasonable, rational. We're not out to disprove homeowners, but we're, certainly looking for phenomena. And we're also not out there to stir the homeowners up. I have actually seen groups who go out, even locally, and berate homeowners until they, find something for them to be haunted by. I mean, I have seen so much in 20 years, I can't even anymore.
Yeah.
But we go out, we try to see what we can find. We do kind of a threefold investigation. So the first part, my investigators actually don't know an address until usually an hour to two before the case, so that in theory they're not doing research. I mean, I do have to have some level of trust.
Right.
But they're usually, to do research of any sort on anything, you actually have to have a little time. So they usually will have a general idea of where we're going, like, South St. Pete, so plan for 30 minutes, but they're not going to know the address.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes I've carpooled, so I've driven. I don't normally like to do that, however, because in today's world, if something happens, you do want to have an emergency contact with someone. I've never had to deal with that, but I think about all scenarios, and so I try to give an address right close to the case.
Right.
We'll go out. There's a silent walkthrough. Usually, if I'm the contact, I actually sit with the homeowners so that I'm not tipping my hand. Although, as a professor, you do learn to do a very good poker face over the years.
Right.
My grandfather died. Really? Again? And you can't say that. So
Yeah.
So anyway, and you get that from the students. I want to tell you why I didn't do my assignment.
Right.
But anyway, so I sit with the homeowners. I talk with them because what we've found over the years is a couple of things. One, we've had a couple cases where I did not sit with homeowners. This was before this became initiated, and there was possible tampering. Homeowners are usually very afraid that we're not going to find something and that we're going to label them as crazy, or they are setting us up. So,
Yes.
you know, there were only a couple instances, not many, I think 2 to 3, and after that, over the first 10, 15 years of the team, but after that, 10 years, I started saying, well, why don't I just sit with the homeowners? They also want to tell us what's going on, and so this way, I can direct them to me and just start creating some notes about what they're telling me, even though I've already started these notes, but any other details. And it keeps them, and it makes them a little calmer, a little more comfortable. Afterwards, the group comes back. They kind of tell us what they found. So I do have sensitives, and again, that's part of the pseudoscience of this, and there's not much you can do. I do have sensitives. I have equipment investigators, so folks that really specialize in trying to find EM and whatnot. I have an off-site historian who will send me the data ahead of time about anything that she can find on the location, so that is in my files.
Mm-hmm.
But the investigators come back and they tell me what they found, where, what it was. You know, we found this and this happened at the same time. The areas of highest activity are those that we focus on with video, EVP work, questions. The homeowner at that point can come with us. We usually try not to have him or her, usually it's a her though, tell us anything in addition until the very, very end. At the very end, there's kind of the reveal, so I can say, well, this is what my archivist, my researcher found on your property. This is my dear team. This is what the homeowner reported. But they can actually hear what my group finds during the investigation. And it's actually been pretty amazing. I have worked with some absolutely incredible people.
Now, have you ever come across something that like really stood out? Like, wow, I can't believe I just witnessed that.
There have been a few cases like that, sure. One of my favorites was we did what was then called the Indigo Hotel.
Okay.
We actually helped to co-host this Coast Conference here in 2008. And it was like the only one we ever did, but it's okay. And it was the Indigo, if you remember, it was in downtown, and it used to be the Martha Washington. We actually got to study it for a year.
Okay.
And during that time, we had reporters who wanted to find out what we were doing, and they came with us. And while we were all standing in a room, we actually had lights turn on and off by themselves, even though the light switch was directly in view.
Mm-hmm.
The building was locked. We went through the entire building, so unless there was an employee working really, really hard to trick us, it was interesting. We were setting up equipment, and these lights turned on and off, and I said, so is somebody here? And the lights turned on again.
Oh, wow.
And I said, you've got to be kidding me. Can you wait until we set up our equipment? That was fun. But I came out in an article called The Girls of Ghost Hunting, and I just about died on that. I'm like, no.
Oh, yeah.
No. I'm a college professor. Yeah, I'm a doctorate.
Yeah.
Can you please call me something other than girl?
The Girls of Ghost Hunting.
It drove me crazy. We just did Rose Cemetery up in Tarpon Springs, which is kind of it's been trod through before. We've investigated it in 2004, 2010. Let's see, there was one other. But we're rechecking, and sometimes it's a good thing to do. And I think what we're going to do this year is we're going to try and do 4 separate investigations there at the same time, every 3 months throughout the year. We really did get some EVPs. I was shocked because we try to get out around sunset. Unfortunately, the cemetery has a bit of a reputation for nefarious activities, and I really don't want to have to explain to any police officers why we're there after dark.
Right, yeah, it's always fun to do.
Yeah, it's awkward, and I've never had to do it because we've always tried to be very respectful of the space. It's very important that you are. And, the theory that ghosts only appear, during the nighttime is, that's just a legend. Ghosts can show up whenever they want.
That's
maybe a little stronger at night, but,
yes. Yes, that's very true. Actually, when I was talking about doing the ghost hunting in Florida, it was broad daylight in the cemetery, and probably 4 o'clock in the afternoon, summertime, and that's when we got to EVPs.
I agree. And in fact, we started at 4 o'clock, and I think we left at 6:30 because sunset adjusted, because this was just December. Just in December. But, you know, you get home and you play all of this, and I'm thinking, oh, we're not going to. There were 3 of us in the cemetery. There was not another living soul, and there's somebody that is muttering and talking on at least 5 pieces of this recording.
Wow. Wow.
And that's what's really cool when you really get something like that. Now, the problem that I have is that sometimes you get folks that kind of try to put that down. Well, those are going to be negative ghosts in a cemetery. Well, maybe, maybe not. I mean, we're not out to find negative ghosts. We're just out to see who's there, if they need anything, if they have a message to pass on. I mean, we're not trying to intrude into the space. We're not being disrespectful. And in fact, 2 of my members volunteer in the cemetery helping to clean it up.
Right,
so,
right.
You know, it's stuff like that that's really kind of phenomenal. I do take the pugs for the paranormal pets element. I have 2 pugs, Achilles and Odysseus. Their predecessor was a pug named Odyssey. Odyssey seemed to have some sensitivity, and he went on not many cases. I'm very picky about when I take them. So I have to have been there. I have to have checked it through. It has to be safe. The owners have to approve it. They have to be willing to allow the pugs to go through without leashes because I'm not dragging them into locations that they don't want to go.
Mm-hmm.
And I have to know where the emergency vet is, just in case. I'm paranoid. So the pugs, one of my very favorites was my vet clinic at the time. Actually said, well, the clinic was founded by this vet who died many years ago. The current owner bought the business from this man before he passed away, but there's just this very strong presence there. They have doors that open. And I'll be darned if these pugs did not prove to be useful. So I took the brothers, I took Achilles, and I mean to a vet clinic of all places that I had been to. The ghost was not negative. I mean, that's the other thing I check for. I'm not going to take them someplace where the ghost doesn't like animals. It doesn't make sense. And this was most likely haunted by this former vet. So we get there, and the pugs, they goofed off.
Right.
Hysterical. And they love the attention. They had a good time. Well, all of a sudden they stopped.
No.
They turned in unison, and they both stared at this spot on the wall. So I'm taking a picture of this thing, and I'm like, okay, this is interesting. We later found out that this was a solid wall while we were there. I had not been to the clinic in its prior incarnation. So when the new owner bought it, he had revitalized it and done some renovations. That was the spot that they were at was where the door was to this vet's office. And he used to stand in the doorway, he would look out the window, and that's where he was if anybody ever wanted him. I'm like, okay. The second thing was watching hours of video where I had it focused on one of the doors that opened, and these pugs, they were still having a good time. They would race around, and you get kind of, a little goofy when you're watching videos sometimes, and I'm like sitting there going, oh, look, there's a pug running through, and there he goes. And he was running laps in this thing. It was quite funny.
Interesting.
But it was entertaining and kind of funny, and it broke up the monotony. And so there he goes, and he ran through again. Oh, that's so cute. Look at him. The third time, he stopped. I'm like, oh, okay. This is where it gets really bizarre. And this pug is actually sleeping. Oh, he's out on the couch. He's not even sitting with me. Oh, what kind of pug is that? But anyway, he actually stopped. He looked up at the camera. I'm like, okay.
Oh, wow.
I'm watching him looking up at the camera. He turned and he looked at the door. He stared at it. He turned and he looked at the camera again, and he walked away. About 5 seconds later, the door opened. And it was just like, okay.
It's like he knew that something was there or going to take place. And I wanted to ask you about that too, because I mean the show is about paranormal pets. Now, when you're talking about paranormal pets, are you talking about like the ghost of animals, or more like their ability to sense paranormal activity, or both even?
Kind of both. So. Okay. The problem with animal psychology is that West is very slow at this. We're still catching up, right? So we're still trying to say that animals have sentience, and I'm like, okay. The East at least knew that much earlier than we did. But the Western concepts of animals and their relations to humans, we're lagging a little bit. So now that we're starting to catch up, they're starting to notice things like, I happen to have pet rats, so hopefully that doesn't gross people out. I love my rats. They are super intelligent, and they are of domestic lineage. I do not have wild rats, thank you. But rats, for example, they have started to have empathy, and actually build relationships with other rats. And I'm like, well, I could have told you that. I have a colony. I mean, it's hysterical to watch the soap opera someday, but, so we're starting to come out with these studies that animals are self-aware, they're aware of others, they are emotional. We're starting to see IQ elements as to what animals can do and how far they can think. So the dogs, in general, I think they're saying, around the average 4-year-old vocabulary for a human, and that there is cognitive ability here. Now, we have to keep saying, but it's not like humans, and that's fine. However, when you start looking at that, the counterbalance to that is this. Humans, we actually do have more than our 5 senses. We have a 6th sense, which is, believe it or not ESP, but if you close your eyes, the ability to stand and know where your body is, where your hands are without looking, is actually considered a sense.
Okay.
And the ability to kind of sense a pressure and know when to stop, even if you're not looking. So it's like this pressure that builds up in front of your forehead, and it's hard to explain, but it's there. So we probably, even our levels of anxiety, psychologists have come out and said we weren't supposed to be this anxious, but when we were most likely in our more primitive states, anxiety served a purpose because it kept us alert and looking for predators, right?
Right.
But because there are no predators, we have this alertness that we don't know what to do with. And so it's starting to channel and form into these levels of anxiety. So if we have kind of this, these remnants of additional senses, right? Remnants, perhaps, that become something like ESP or size sensitivity or some sort of genetic inheritance. All I know is my family doesn't have it. We're very boring that way, but okay. And perhaps animals have a greater sense of that, right? If they are closer to nature, the less domesticate an animal, perhaps the greater the sense.
Yes.
Or the psychic ability. They are not told they're not supposed to see this, is the most common expression. Like a child doesn't know it's not supposed to see a ghost.
Right,
so
right.
I try to look at that level. The other level is animals maintaining a sentience beyond death. I would propose that animals are quite self-aware, and that some animals are aware enough to maintain a conscious level after death. And I have plenty of ghost stories from many people who sent them in of animals as ghosts.
Yeah, let's hear some of those. Share one of those with us. I would like to hear one of those.
Well, I can tell you. Oh, actually, I've got the Shadow Animals page. I've got the Paranormal Pugs page. Some of my favorites, though, and they have very generic.
Now, when you say you got these pages, these are web addresses that you have,
yeah,
right?
they're websites.
What are they, so people can check them out?
Actually, if you go to our spiritsofstpetersburg.com, just scroll to the bottom and you'll see, I've been doing this for so long, and some of these sites are super antiquated, so I apologize in advance, but they're so big I can't change them, and I'm not gonna.
Right.
Deal with my old websites. But you can actually click, and you will actually find the links at the bottom. So we have some Florida urban legends, we've got shadow animals, we've got paranormal pets, and they all counterlink to each other one way or the other. I've tried to kind of make this ginormous circle of web links. But some of my favorite stories are just the very subtle ones. Like, I had one person who told me that I believe it was a 16 or 17-year-old golden retriever, remarkably old dog for something that large.
Yes.
Had passed away, and they every night before this dog went to bed, it would go and it would walk down the hall and it would get a drink of water. and there was a very distinct sound of its collar that had an ID tag clinking against the bowl.
Okay.
And the health of the animal declined to the point that the owner had to put it to sleep. And that's always a really hard call.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
Heartbreaking when it happened.
Yes.
And they had come home that night, and they had put the collar, they had been given the collar back, and they put the collar on the shelf. And they got into, the husband was the one who told me the story. He said, we got into bed, and all of a sudden, we heard the sound of footsteps going down the hall, and the sound of water slurping, and this collar clinking against the bowl.
That's crazy.
But I looked up, and that collar was on the counter, or the countertop where I had left it. But, here's this ritual. So the question is multifold. So is it that the animal has maintained its conscious level and is actually manifesting perhaps to give comfort to his or her humans? And I tend, because I believe animals do this, I think they have that compassion, I tend to agree with that. The skeptic might say, and I can see where this would be, that it could be, and this is so Freudian, the great irony here, that it could be a projection of grief from the individual, that perhaps an internal hallucination of sorts. But I have heard so many stories about that, or the cat that passed away, and you come home and you see this indent on the bed, and it's still warm, and you can't figure out what this is, and you hear the cat jump off, even though it's been dead. And people tell me these stories, and it's kind of amazing. My pugs have not come back to visit me, and I'm always very sad for that. But at the same time, it's kind of a relief because it means I'm theoretically still sane. But I have had one pet, just one. I never know how people are going to take this, but I had a hairless rat. His name was the Shadow, because I'm a huge fan of Pulp Fiction for reasons that I don't even know. So The Shadow was a Pulp Fiction series from the 30s, and I named a whole series of rats after characters in this Pulp Fiction. He was the first.
Okay.
He was a brilliant, brilliant rat. People don't understand that some of these rats don't even identify with other rats. They identify with humans.
Yes.
He loved the pugs. He loved them. Unfortunately, pugs don't like rats.
Right.
And if you've ever seen a pug look at a rat, it's almost the same thing as a rat hater. They have this horrible look on their face of utter revulsion. But he loved them. And this rat was so smart that he would break out of his cage at night. And honest to God, I had to make a verbal deal with him. I'm like, look, buddy, you stay in the cage when I'm not here, because I'm very concerned that the pugs will chase you. Even though they don't like you, because they don't like you, they'll chase you. Stay in the cage, but at night, when I'm going to bed, I will open the door and you can run. As long as you come back in the morning, I'm putting you back in. This rat would actually climb up into bed, and he would curl up on my shoulder. I would wake up, and I would look like this weird fetus.
Wow.
First couple times, that was a very big surprise to wake up to, but he would actually curl up with us. I mean, it was hysterical.
That's definitely a connection between the human and the animal. I mean,
absolutely.
Yeah,
the issue was that he passed away. He passed away at a year. I had to put him to sleep because he had an inoperable tumor that was growing up at his and he was suffocating. And I'll be darned if not for the next week, there were 3 instances where I kept seeing this little streak go by. And at least once I looked up, and I swear he was sitting in the spot where he normally would be, and I looked right at him, and he was gone after that. So either I was completely hallucinating, which I'm hoping I wasn't, or he actually did come to visit. I'll leave that up to the listener to determine.
Right. Do you think that, when animals pass on and humans pass on, they go to the same realm or heaven, people might call it? Do you think they go to the same place, or is there a designated place for animals, a designated place for humans? What's your take on that?
Ooh, now we get into religion.
Yeah, I was just wondering. I mean, it makes me wonder about that, if they go to the same place or if they just wander the earth.
Personal point of view is that I want to go to heaven and see all my pets.
Yeah,
so that's I would love that. Right, there's some awesome awesome guys that I'd love to see again.
Well, I had an angel expert on here, and she said that whenever you die, you are actually greeted by your loved ones and all your pets. And she truly believed that. So that was relieving to hear that.
One of the coolest stories I heard, it was about a psychopomp that was an animal. So the psychopomp is the person that leads you to the other side, like Mercury or Hermes would do, or Anubis. And this story, the psychopomp, we can have our own individual ones, right? So when we're dying and we see that loved one who's there for us to take us over to the other side, one of the best stories I heard was this woman who was dying, and she sat up and she shouted, "Licorice!" And she reached out into the air and she threw her arms out like she was hugging something, and then she collapsed back and she was dead.
Wow.
Everybody went, "What? What is she? Licorice is her last word?"
Right.
Well, it turned out she had a relative who said Licorice was her childhood horse.
Ah.
Had loved so much, and the horse had died at an old age, and she was just so heartbroken. But that story to me, I'm thinking, I'm waiting for Odyssey to show up, man. My parents, I don't know. Odyssey better be there, right? My parents better be there too, but it's fine. But ultimately, it was one of those things where, that's just a fantastic story. So my theory is this. I do think, to a certain extent, that animals do reincarnate. They do go through a rebirth.
Okay.
Now, this is completely my own theory, so understand, not academic, just years of looking at this stuff, but, I'd have to say I cobbled the ideas from various sources. It's almost a syncretic religious ideal, but it's fine. So, this idea that, for example, rats live, die, and I think they reincarnate. I think they show back up as something else.
Okay.
Buddhism actually kind of explains it in a nice way, because the mind goes from
Buddhism does, yes, it does.
the one entity to the next, from the mind imprint. I love Buddhism because it says, well, if you've ever noticed, animals have different personalities, and some are very human, some are very animal-like, some are domestic, and some are completely feral. Domestic animals, according to Buddhism, are those who were reborn and they were once human. And because they had a little bit of better karma, they get a better lifestyle. They get to be domestic and cared for.
Interesting.
Whereas perhaps more animalistic animals are preparing to be incarnated as humans. So my feeling is, and those that I've heard from and interviewed over the years, is that, animals do go in for a rebirth. I do wonder if some do have enough strong consciousness to go on to the other side and to maintain a spirit or soul form. I think it'd be fantastic. Perhaps we carry a piece of them. Maybe when we die, we're the ones who release that piece of their soul. I've always thought it fascinating that so many cultures say that, we have more than one soul, and that some pieces of the soul will live on through history, through our name and reputation, or perhaps through the hearts of others. So maybe that's what happens. But I kind of figure that all of us are going to know one way or the other. Someday we'll find out, and I'll find out if my theory is correct.
And one of your talking points, you said that, what do you mean when you say that animals can produce ghosts? What does that mean exactly?
Well, again, that would be that they would have the conscious level to maintain an identity and to manifest. One of my sub-interests is actually something called shadow animals. So I had a couple friends that were fascinated by shadow people, but I started getting stories on shadow animals. And shadow animals have general characteristics. I actually have a shadow animals page too, so that's another website. I'm always looking for stories. But shadow animals are typically, and this sounds terrible, I have seen one once. And this is what actually started my interest. We were on a case in Temple Terrace, and it turns out that this was a very contentious case because the wife and the husband were going through a divorce. The wife had invited us to investigate the house. The husband had already moved out, didn't know. And the wife was messing around with stuff in the house. And so, you get in there, and this was when the team was very new. It was like 2003, so we were young. 20 years of experience, you start learning a few things. But
absolutely.
I wasn't aware of this, and I didn't know to ask these questions. So we get there, And the bulk of the activity, the sensitives are pulling us upstairs, and it's oddly enough, and there's like this vortex that's in the master bathroom and bedroom area. And I'm recording them as they're kind of doing their thing. And I had the Handycam, the Sony Handycam. I don't know if you remember those. This was back in the day when you had the little miniature tapes.
Yes, yes.
The Handycam had infrared, and I actually had to be careful because this one still did the X-ray. It's still. This is when the Sony Handycams were still seeing through people's clothes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, yeah, okay.
Running joke that I couldn't show any of the videos because it would see all these bras, everybody's bra straps. It was awful. But anyway, side story, sorry.
No, it's okay.
They're recording, and I'm watching, these folks, and they're talking about what they're sensing. And all of a sudden, I see coming out of this master bathroom this creature. And it was about a little larger than a raccoon, and it was cat-like. I remember it was cat-like, and it was black with black spots. And I'm like, that has always kind of concerned me for my state of mentality, but okay. And I was so certain that it was going to hit me that I actually didn't drop the camera, but I put the camera down. Like, I pulled the camera away from my face, looking to see what this creature was, and there was nothing there. And then I started hearing other people tell me these stories about these dark creatures, these animals that were kind of in a state of running.
Okay.
They scattered, they would run. Oftentimes they were cat-shaped, but not always. They could be the size of anything from mice to cattle and bears was the largest one I think I heard. They were always rushing, though. They were always seen in motion.
Okay.
So I did kind of speculate a theory that perhaps these were wild animals. These are animals that are not domestics, that have passed away, and maybe what you're actually catching with these shadow animals is kind of this glimpse of them as they're literally rushing to the other side.
Right, right.
Again, complete theory, but much to my surprise, I still get shadow animal stories, so I log them in as I get them.
Well, I got something for you there, Brandy.
Sure.
One time when we were doing an investigation, we weren't looking for animals at all. It was more about, the certain legends of this certain park. And we happened to take a photo, and I cannot believe the quality that we got. We got a horse's head, okay? And if you go to mysticparanormal.net and you click on photos, I have the picture up of that horse's head. I mean, you could see detail like you would never believe of this horse's head. And there's just no mistake in it. I mean, everybody that sees it is like, oh my God, that's a horse. So it's like, there's got to be something with animals that survive too, a soul, a spirit, whatever you may call it. There's definitely something there, because I have never had such a clear photo with detail like this horse's head, and it's posted on our website, and you'll have to check that out because I think you would really find that interesting. I would like to hear what you have to say about that. It's one of the best photos I've ever captured.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
I'd like to take a look at it, and here's what I find really interesting is that there are stories of, for example, cowboys or horse and carriage manifesting. Like there's the story of one of the dead queens from Henry, and one of the dead queens from France, as I recall. I think it is Marie Antoinette, and they actually appear. The legend is on the anniversary of their death, drawn in a carriage drawn by headless horses, which is weird with the headless horseman.
Yes.
But the thing that kind of gets me with these stories, the cowboy on the horse. Well, how's the horse manifesting?
Exactly.
How do we get ghost cars too? But and why are ghosts wearing clothing? But all of that aside, I do think that's kind of an interesting point. And when you deal with ancient tales of animals, cattle and horses are also supposed to be highly, highly sensitive to ghosts.
That's interesting. And you'll see them act weird for no reason. Like, even dogs, I mean, they'll just look into thin air and start barking or growling, and there's absolutely nothing there.
And that's where you have to, that's the other problem, I think, sometimes in dealing with paranormal pets, or pets as in theory, a tool of ghost investigation, but sometimes we just don't know what they're thinking.
No, unless they're just crazy.
They can be. They truly can be. But
Yep.
usually I do, suggest that if I have found that most pet owners are pretty in tune with their pets. So, if your animal starts acting up, I'd at least document it.
Yes, yes.
They're also aware of things that we aren't, like, there's a theory that animals can actually hear our cars. They have such there's a certain vibration, which is how they always know when we're coming.
I believe that. I mean, I could hear, like, people walk up on my porch, like, before they're even at my porch. My dogs know they're going to be coming on the porch any second now. And then before you know it, bam, there they are.
It's really interesting how that works. And that's, of course, where animals start taking on that supernatural relevance, too, that we find in mythology and ancient cultures. Dogs are actually considered liminal state beings. They are in between worlds. So you get Erebus, or you get the Zoroastrian dogs that guard the bridge between heaven and earth. You get Sedna and her dog from the Inuit. Because dogs, their great sensitivity towards finding death.
Yes.
Death eaters. And because you are what you eat, it gives you a certain sensitivity to that realm. So, whereas cats, by the way, are usually considered sorcery or mystic, dogs are usually considered, at least mythically, dogs are usually considered those liminal state guardians, that they are able to find those realms between realms.
Right.
Or those portals. And so this is where the whole field, that's why I like to at least poke around in it and take a look. And hopefully I try to give some folks some hope. There are grief support groups for folks who've lost their pets.
Yeah.
And I understand, and I think it is a comfort to have this idea that your animal still exists somehow.
Yes. I agree 100%. Like, I'll tell you what, my 2 dogs right now, they're like literally my kids. I don't have kids. They are literally my kids. And if something... Yeah, if something would happen to them, it would just be devastating. I have a German Shepherd that's actually going blind right now, so he's walking into walls. It's just so sad to see them age and to see, their health deteriorate. And you're putting all the money into them, you're taking them to the vet, you're doing what you're supposed to do, but nature just always catches up to them.
Yeah, it does. And it's, well, my advice for most people is that animals seem to kind of take things more in stride. I think the issue that I have with rodents, particularly small, the rats and the pocket pets, they are so vibrant. They live every day to the fullest. They are happy, jolly creatures. I don't know how else to explain it, but they are, and they're curious and they're alert.
Yep.
But have such short lifespans.
That's what's so sad.
You get 2 to 3 years. Sometimes 4, but that's rare. But what I have found is that they take aging in a different manner than we do.
They have to, yes.
They take death differently. It doesn't... I have some rats that seem to fight it.
I don't think they're afraid to die. I really don't. I don't think they're afraid to die naturally. Like... It's funny because when you talk about pocket pets, we had a hamster. His name was Duke. And it was funny because, when have you ever heard of a hamster? Like, we would let him run around on the floor, and he would run under the dresser all the time. He liked going under there. And my wife would literally say, Duke, come here. And he would come booking out and come over to her, a hamster. Just like a dog would.
That's pretty smart for a hamster.
Yeah, and it was amazing. It was the most amazing thing. And then one day, he was kind of slowing down, and he was building a bed. And Chris, my wife, she was helping him build the bed, and it ended up she was building his deathbed with him, and because he died the very next day. Like, when we found him, he was dead in his bed that very next day. It's like he knew that he was going to go, and he made his bed, and he made sure that he was sheltered, and I think he knew. It really appeared that he knew.
I think they do know. I think they have, and I think particularly when you can have them in groups. We know as well that animals experience grief. That are now accounts of multi-pet households in which the pet passes away and the others become despondent, depressed, look for the deceased.
Oh, yeah.
part of the reason why I maintain a rat colony and a pug rumble, a group of pugs, because what you have to do is you have to go generationally.
Yes.
So as a certain group begins to age, then you get the next group. They form kind of that pack bond.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm crazy because I actually do have a group, so I've got 6 pugs.
No, it's all good. Trust
God,
me.
It's crazy. It's good though. Yes, they outsmart me some days.
Yes.
But
yes.
when you get that next generation, because once that eldest generation ages out, I tend to get siblings. I've got 2 sets of siblings, and that's going to be hard. But they will have an infrastructure. They will have others. You know, that pack continues.
Right. You know, someone said on Facebook here, it's real interesting. This is real interesting what they said, that sometimes, like, when they see the ghosts, like, you know, people of the Civil War and Gettysburg and stuff, they'll see them actually riding horses. So you'll see both the spirit of the guy and the spirit of the horse together.
Yeah.
That's I don't know how you explain that. It's just phenomenal. I mean, I don't know if we'll ever be able to explain that.
Well, the only thing that it kind of reminds me of, though, is the ghost that people see in cars.
Oh, yes, yes.
Come from. So is it a projection by the ghost?
Right. Is
it actually, but the horse is a little bit different. So is it actually the horse's consciousness that has returned? Are they a partner set? Or is the ghost, what would be really cool is if the human ghost was a projection of the horse, or is the horse a projection of the human ghost? Much in the same way that we would manifest with clothing, you know, rather than naked. That would be kind of a weird ghost to see, but ghosts always have, and I need to find out how they decide what clothes they're going to wear, but they're always wearing something. I mean, you know, how many accounts of naked ghosts have you really come across?
Exactly.
So, again, the connection, is it the horse and the human working in conjunction as 2 minds together? Is the horse the projection? And even better yet, is the human the projection?
And I'm the type of person, honestly, I cannot hunt. I can't do that. I just can't do it. And I mean, I understand if you have to live and you're doing what you got to do to survive. I mean, I get it. It's you know, what you're supposed to do. But I just can't do it. And I, like, when you hear about slaughterhouses and stuff like that, that just morbidizes me. I mean, I can't imagine working at a place like that.
Can't either. But if you see folks who do, I mean, essentially what they have to do is they become detached.
Yes, they do.
The animal has no meaning.
Yes. I suppose you have to in a job like that.
You would.
Yeah.
And you would, I think, you know, I don't know how folks work at animal shelters either, particularly kill shelters. I think there has to be a certain level of detachment there.
Yes.
Of course, then again, I don't know how people work at pet stores, because I'd be like, well, I'd be taking all of those home.
I know, right?
Every week there's a new shipment, and then they just go to my house.
I know. Well, I'll tell you what, Brandy, believe it or not, our hour has flown by.
Okay.
It's actually flown by. So if there's anything else that you would like to say, I mean, go ahead and say it. Now would be the time.
Well, I would just encourage folks, if they're interested in any of this material, most of it, as I mentioned, is up on the Spirits of St. Petersburg site, so it's www.spiritsofstpetersburg.com. If you click around enough, you'll see the shadow animals, paranormal pugs, and paranormal pocket pets, which are all on the bottom.
Okay.
If they have questions or they'd like to email me, there's an email button, or you can email me at tbspirits, so Tampa Bay Spirits, and get ready for an old address, at netscape.net.
Netscape, holy crap.
20 years, man, I'm afraid to change anything.
Oh, man, Netscape, wow.
But I do really want to thank you for having me on. This was a lot of fun.
Yeah, I had a blast. It really flew by. I couldn't believe how quick the hour went by. It's amazing.
Pray for us. We are awesome.
Yeah. And it's time to burn the midnight oil, because I got 1.5 hours from now too. So.
Okay. All right, we'll let you get some rest.
All right.
My homework.
Brandy, it's been good. It's been good talking to you. It was awesome, and I really enjoyed the show. Seriously, I really did.
Well, I did too. And if you'll just do me a favor and send me the link, I'll post it on my site as well.
Yes, and definitely check out that horse's head at mysticparanormal.net. Just click on photos and you'll see it. And you have to let my producer know what you think. And it's amazing. You're really going to be impressed by it.
I will do so. Thank you so much.
All right, thank you. And hey, you have a good night, okay?